Good day. I am currently experiencing a profound sense of unease due to the inability to locate my boyfriend. Our residence is devoid of his presence, and when I assert that all his belongings have been removed, I am indeed referring to an exhaustive array of items. I am aware that this may appear as a rather implausible claim, but I assure you that it is, in fact, a factual statement. I am genuinely uncertain about the whereabouts of my boyfriend, and this uncertainty is causing me significant distress. How might one even begin to explain the seemingly sudden disappearance of a partner? I am reluctant to label him as missing just yet, but the circumstances are highly suspicious and I am utterly perplexed. There is a possibility that I might be somehow responsible for this situation. Let me provide you with some context. My name is Serena, and I am a 24-year-old. I am a 24-year-old woman. My boyfriend's name is Nate, and we have been in a relationship for approximately 2 years. Our relationship began when I gave him a massage, and our connection has been intense ever since. We eventually decided to move in together. Nate is an accountant, and he is incredibly dedicated to his work. When we chose to share an apartment, I initially had concerns about the cost, as it was more expensive than the very affordable apartment I previously lived in. However, Nate insisted on getting, as previously stated, I am a massage therapist, a profession that offers a more modest income than that of an accountant. My earnings depend on the number of massages I provide, so a slow day with clients can significantly impact my finances. Initially, I was reluctant to take on the financial responsibility of a costly apartment, but Nate convinced me otherwise. However, it is important to note that Nate did not handle all the bills independently. He is not the type of person who believes that women should not contribute financially. In fact, He is quite thrifty, but he considers himself financially prudent. We split all apartment expenses equally, and he also provides gifts and takes me out. All other financial aspects are divided evenly. He is not one to heavily invest in a relationship. He did not explicitly state this, but I picked up on it from his actions. Therefore, if you thought I had a good chance of winning the lottery by dating an accountant, you would be mistaken. As I mentioned, the apartment is excessively expensive and already furnished, so we did not need to buy furniture. I will now proceed to address the urgent issue that has been occupying my thoughts. I have spent a considerable amount of time grappling with this problem, attempting to discern the underlying causes and the reasons behind his abrupt departure. Initially, I attempted to deny the truth, although I was aware of a potential explanation. However, I was reluctant to accept it. I still maintain that it is highly unlikely that Nate could have discovered my infidelity. It was a single instance. The incident in question occurred in the heat of the moment, as he was not present. I am of the opinion that this cannot be the reason for his sudden departure without prior notice. If you are wondering why I cannot simply call him, it is because he has blocked me. My boyfriend blocked me without warning. Initially, I suspected something might have gone wrong and considered filing a missing persons report. However, I decided against it because I believe that if something were a missing person, it is implausible that he would have had the time to neatly pack his belongings and then block me. I recognize that many of you are eager to know the details of my confession about cheating on Nate. I am similarly eager to share the truth. However, I am uncertain if that is the reason for his sudden disappearance. I hope it is not, because that would mean my life is essentially ruined. Losing Nate is not an option. I love him dearly, and although my confession is belated, it is genuine. I love him with all my heart. Furthermore, I am reluctant to lose him. The infidelity was unintentional, it was merely a spontaneous act, and it is inconsequential. I must immediately inform his family about the circumstances, so I asked for your patience. I will provide an update as soon as possible. I have returned. I understand that not all of you will miss me. Given my situation, it is understandable that some of you have been referring to me in unkind comments, which I find somewhat discourteous. However, I accept responsibility for my actions. I admit to having engaged in an affair with his boss. Such actions are not acceptable, yet some have been quite harsh, even going so far as to call me derogatory names. I must emphasize that I only engaged in sexual intercourse with his boss. There were no other instances of infidelity. This was my first experience with such behavior, and I genuinely regret it. I am determined never to repeat such a mistake. I visited Nate's family, and the encounter was the most intense and dramatic experience of my life. I will share the details later, but first, I must explain how I ended up involved with Nate's boss. I work as a massage therapist. I am aware that my profession entails intimate interactions on occasion. I wish to clarify that I am being truthful. Massage therapy involves physical contact with clients, and it can occasionally become intimate, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It is of the utmost importance to maintain professionalism in order to ensure that boundaries are respected. If you have already guessed that I provided a massage to his boss, you are correct. Nate has always had reservations about my job, and he strongly dislikes the fact that I am a massage therapist. He has expressed his disapproval on numerous occasions. I have argued that it is unfair for him to belittle my profession, particularly given that my occupation was the initial reason for our encounter. He visited the establishment where I was employed and received a massage from me. He enjoyed it and returned for a second session, explaining that his demanding role as an accountant left him in need of stress relief. One of the key aspects of my role as a massage therapist is helping clients. I am gratified to be able to alleviate stress, which provides me with a deep sense of satisfaction. This is why I have continued in this profession. Our bond grew during his sessions, ultimately leading to us exchanging contact information and starting our relationship. However, Nate became increasingly bothered by the potential for intimate sessions in my line of work. I consistently reassured him of my professionalism and commitment to maintaining boundaries. It was challenging to convince him because Nate is a highly independent individual. Additionally, Nate is a resolute individual. I have previously discussed his sister, Elena, who strongly disapproved of my occupation and frequently accused me of infidelity. However, that is a topic for another time. I never had the opportunity to meet Nate's colleagues at his workplace because neither of us saw a pressing need for it. It was never a topic of discussion since we were both engrossed in our respective jobs. Approximately 3 weeks ago, Nate and I attended a party where, coincidentally, some of his colleagues were also present. Additionally, the event included the presence of Nate's colleagues. It was subsequently revealed that the gathering was a celebration of Nate's boss's birthday, organized by his colleagues. Initially, Nate had not planned to attend the event because he had promised to take me to a club on that same day. Upon learning about the celebration, I experienced feelings of remorse and promptly made arrangements to attend. I expressed my apologies to Nate and the entire group, acknowledging my role in the incomplete celebration. I recognize that I am like any woman who occasionally makes demands on her boyfriend without considering his prior commitments. His colleagues reassured me and even jokingly suggested that I was overreacting. My regret originated from recalling that when I initially inquired of Nate, he had committed to spending that day with me. However, I had disregarded his intentions. Nate's boss introduced himself as Cole, shaking my hand and reassuring me that there was no need to apologize. Curious about my profession, he inquired, and I responded that I informed him that I worked as a massage therapist. However, as soon as I uttered those words, I sensed Nate's simmering frustration. Initially, I was unable to comprehend the source of his distress. However, it subsequently became apparent that he had a strong aversion to my profession and likely felt uneasy about disclosing my occupation to his colleagues. Conversely, his colleagues reacted quite differently, displaying genuine interest and curiosity. Some even made playful comments about scheduling appointments with me. However, we all shared a laugh, assuming it was all in good fun. I was unable to fathom why his colleagues would genuinely consider booking a massage with me, but Nate did not share my perspective. His body language suddenly shifted, and he became visibly tense and agitated. The reaction of the workers, including Nate's boss, was markedly different. They displayed genuine interest and curiosity, questioning why Nate had not mentioned my profession earlier. Some even made playful comments about scheduling appointments with me, but we all shared a laugh, assuming it was all in jest. I was unable to comprehend why his colleagues would genuinely consider booking a massage with me, but Nate did not share my perspective. His body language suddenly shifted, and he became visibly tense and agitated. Subsequently, he reprimanded his colleagues, instructing them to cease their pursuit of massages from me. Upon returning home, I confronted Nate about his disproportionate response, which seemed to lack comprehension of the initial incident. I did not perceive any issue with his colleagues' comments and was uncertain as to why he had reacted so strongly. I was keen to avoid becoming a source of conflict in the workplace, particularly given that I was the sole woman among a group of men, and it was not uncommon for them to become overly enthusiastic and make light of. Nate made it clear that he found their comments disrespectful. I refrained from saying more to avoid offending him. I preferred to leave it at that, as I did not believe their comments were intended seriously. However, I was surprised when I realized they were not joking. Cole's unexpected appearance at my workplace was particularly surprising. I should clarify that I had mentioned my workplace at the club during our introduction. Before any readers might be tempted to label me a pick-me girl in the comments, I feel compelled to explain that my actions were driven by a desire to protect my own interests and those of my workplace. Our business operates on a commission basis, and if I had heard potential clients inquiring about where to find me, I would have provided the necessary information. There were other massage therapists at the same location who could have attended to them, so I saw no harm in approaching Cole. I asked him what had brought him to my workplace, genuinely curious about his unexpected visit. He explained that he had experienced a particularly stressful day at work and was seeking a way to unwind. He had never had a professional massage before and believed that it would be beneficial for him to try it. He wanted to support the establishment where I worked, which was the reason for his visit. Cole ended up creating a positive impact at my workplace, causing a pleasant disruption. He is undeniably attractive. In fact, he is very attractive. I am not concealing what I know to be true. Some of my female friends found him appealing and were not shy about expressing their interest. However, they were already engaged with other clients, leaving me as the only available option initially. I attempted to decline the appointment, fearing the consequences if my boss or any superiors found out I couldn't leave a customer waiting when I had no other appointments. Having just completed a session with another client, I was the sole available massage therapist. I attempted to persuade Cole to wait for one of the other therapists, but he insisted on seeing me. I consulted with other massage therapists, but he explained that he had an urgent commitment elsewhere. I proceeded to provide the massage, and to my surprise, he left that day, after generously tipping me $50. I was taken aback and even declined the tip at first, but he insisted. When I returned home, I was unable to bring myself to tell Nate that his boss had visited my workplace and received a massage from me. I feared it would trigger his anger and lead to an argument since I considered it a one-time occurrence. I elected to refrain from disclosing this occurrence to Nate, as I deemed it unnecessary to divulge this information. I saw no issue in fulfilling my duties as a professional massage therapist, drawing upon my extensive experience in the field. I did not experience any apprehension regarding this situation. However, a week later, Cole paid another unexpected visit. I was compelled to fulfill my professional obligations once again. The sole distinction between the two instances was that Cole and I ultimately proceeded to his residence following the session. One might be inclined to categorize me as a promiscuous individual or, even more pejoratively, as a pick-me girl. However, circumstances took an unforeseen turn and I found myself engaged in an act I had never anticipated. It rapidly escalated beyond my initial expectations. Initially, the encounter was merely a routine session. However, I am unable to even begin to describe the specifics during our professional interactions. It is strictly prohibited to take things to another level. However, Cole extended an invitation to his apartment. I was initially captivated by his appearance and allowed myself to be influenced by how my colleagues admired him. I must admit that I engaged in something very foolish. We became intimate and I ended up betraying Nate. Once it was all over, I realized that I had cheated. I considered confessing to Nate, but then I remembered how angry he had become at the mere thought of me massaging his colleagues. I had to consider how he would react upon discovering that I had been intimate with his boss. I ultimately decided that I could not do so, and thus I opted to keep my mouth shut. Cole also urged me to keep it a secret, and he assured me that it was a one-time occurrence. The timing and circumstances were such that I was under no obligation to inform Nate of the occurrence. He had assured me that he would maintain confidentiality if I agreed to do the same. I was therefore inclined to consent, as I had no intention of disclosing the truth to Nate. However, I was aware that he would have immediately terminated our relationship if I had done so. I was well acquainted with Nate and was cognizant of his pragmatic nature, which was not characterized by idealism. Nate's decisions were primarily guided by logic rather than emotion. This is why, when it came to financial matters, he took a practical approach. I was well aware that I wasn't in a fairy tale romance. Consequently, I never considered myself a Disney princess with an irresistible and unbreakable charm. When I returned home that day, I acted as if nothing had occurred. Despite harboring a tremendous sense of guilt, I made an effort to maintain my composure. And feign normalcy. Therefore, it was rather surprising when I arrived home just a week ago and discovered Nate's absence. It felt incredibly odd. I was so consumed by my guilt that I failed to notice Nate had begun distancing himself. I only became aware of this as I write these words now. On that particular day, I came home and prepared dinner as usual. I did so well in advance. Nate typically returned home hours after my arrival due to his late work hours. I waited for nearly 7 hours, but he never showed up. This is not a fabrication, it is a factual account of events. I became increasingly shocked and concerned, prompting me to call him. However, I was unable to reach him, as he had blocked my calls. I ventured into our bedroom, hoping to find a note from him. However, there was nothing there except for the eerily empty closet. I had previously observed that his side of the closet had been vacant, even before the disappearance of his belongings. This led me to question my own sanity. However, the evidence was undeniable. I attempted to reach him through 2 different phone numbers, but I was blocked on both. This is the extent of the information I am able to share. During the initial 5 days, he simply vanished without warning. I did not believe that this was connected to my story. The issue pertains to my infidelity. Prior to posting on Reddit, I had not considered the possibility that he might discover my secret. However, after posting on Reddit, I began to contemplate the likelihood that he had indeed uncovered the truth. My doubts were further dispelled by his family. As previously mentioned, I visited Nate's family, but the visit did not go well. It had been 5 days without any word from Nate, so I felt it was the appropriate time to confide in his family. Initially, I refrained from discussing the situation with them to avoid raising alarms. However, as events proceeded in an unfavorable direction, I believed it was crucial to inform them. His family's response was notably cold and unwelcoming. I considered leaving the moment I entered their house. His sister, who had already expressed disdain for me, seemed to relish the opportunity. To express her disdain when she learned about my infidelity, yes, she was aware of it without me having to admit it. All I mentioned was that Nate had disappeared from our home and I couldn't reach him on his phone. Strangely, they seemed prepared for my visit as if they had been anticipating it. His sister labeled me a promiscuous woman and emphasized that she had always discouraged Nate from dating a masseuse. The therapist predicted that my actions would result in regret. She derided my profession, claiming that I had no real job, and demanded that I leave their house. I attempted to converse with Nate's mother to inquire if Nate had been in touch with them, but she also displayed a strong dislike for me. Even his younger siblings showed no interest in engaging with me. Consequently, I was swiftly ushered out of the house. Despite my efforts, I was unable to ascertain my boyfriend's whereabouts. I have since learned that Nate was aware of my infidelity. This knowledge has left me with a persistent question: where is my boyfriend? This question has become a recurring theme in my second update. I find myself without a boyfriend, having been dumped and rendered single. Many of you may not be surprised by this outcome. I had an inkling that this was something I was headed towards, and deep down, I knew it was inevitable. I was aware of the situation from the outset, yet I elected to feign ignorance and deny the reality of the circumstances. For those interested in the precipitating factors of my downfall, I will summarize my own actions. I suspected that Nate had returned to his previous apartment because it seemed implausible that his family was aware of our situation without his involvement. This indicated that he had not gone far and was likely still in town. I proceeded to visit his former residence. And, just prior to his departure for work the following morning, I encountered him by chance. Fortunately, I was aware of the precise time he would be leaving for work. I had never considered visiting his place of employment because I wished to avoid any embarrassment resulting from an encounter with his superior and colleagues, who were likely already aware of the situation. Nate was notably aloof and exhibited rudeness towards me. He did not allow me the opportunity to speak. He did not allow me the opportunity to speak. He simply declared the relationship over and expressed his desire to end it. According to him, he could not continue dating someone who had cheated on him with his boss. I pleaded with him to reveal how he had discovered my infidelity. It turned out that he had enlisted some of my colleagues at work to keep an eye on me following Cole's birthday celebration at the club. Some of his colleagues had expressed interest in receiving a massage from me. Nate had asked a few individuals he was acquainted with at my workplace to inform him if anything suspicious occurred. As you may recall, Nate had been a regular visitor to my workplace, which is where we initially met. He already had friends there who helped him gather this information. I must admit that I was quite careless. I neglected to recall that I was known as a married woman by everyone. Furthermore, I introduced Cole to my colleagues as my husband's boss. Evidently, Nate confronted Cole just 3 days after obtaining this information and managed to record Cole's confession. Cole, in a foolish move, admitted the truth after Nate resorted to threats and intimidation. Consequently, Nate reported Cole to the HR department. Prior to vacating our apartment, one might inquire as to why he did not simply ask me to leave. The reason for this is that our rent was already due for renewal and he had no intention of extending it. As a result, he departed. Regrettably, I renewed the lease with some of my savings 3 days after Nate abruptly disappeared. I held on to the hope that he would eventually return. Consequently, I now find myself financially strained, residing alone. In an expensive apartment, it is also important to note that I am single. Upon revealing everything to me, Nate warned me sternly never to attempt contacting him again. Just yesterday, I learned from a friend that following Nate's initial report to the HR department, Cole denied the allegations. Consequently, the HR department summoned both of them for further discussion. It was during this meeting that Nate provided, as previously stated, Nate is a strategic thinker. Initially, he deliberately withheld evidence because he was confident that Cole would deny everything. Had Cole admitted his actions, the HR might have issued a mere apology or perhaps suspended him for a few weeks. However, since Cole initially lied to them and was subsequently proven guilty with evidence, he was demoted due to his behavior being deemed disruptive and detrimental to work productivity and a harmonious work environment. Subsequently, he was proven guilty with evidence and demoted to a lower position due to his behavior being deemed disruptive and detrimental to work productivity and a harmonious work environment. I have been informed that Cole was unable to bear the humiliation of this demotion and therefore chose to resign in order to preserve his ego. However, I do not consider this to be a matter of concern, as I believe that both of us have received the consequences that we deserved. Despite ourselves, I experience feelings of loathing and regret for my poor choices. I take solace in the knowledge that Nate received justice and will no longer have to work with the man who had taken his girlfriend away. I offer my deepest apologies for bringing shame and embarrassment to him and live with the remorse of my actions each day. However, the situation cannot be changed. That was a fascinating story. Now, let's move on to another equally intriguing one. Stay tuned and let's delve deeper. Over 5 years ago, I went through a divorce with my ex-wife. The wife's repetitive infidelity with more than 13 different men and 2 women provides some context. My ex-wife and I engaged in swinging activities until the final year of our marriage. However, the situation took a turn for the worse and I decided to cease swapping partners. Unfortunately, she disagreed with me and continued having secret encounters with other men. Approximately 6 months before our divorce, our oldest child received a diagnosis of a life-threatening illness. I will not elaborate on the specifics to protect my privacy. The stress caused by the situation led to excessive drinking, which posed risks to her health and that of our children. The situation deteriorated to the point where I temporarily relocated from our home, taking our children with me. A friend, whom we shall refer to as Amy, approached me. My ex had confided in her about her unfaithful actions during a recent night out with friends. She revealed that she had been engaging in nightly liaisons with different men while consuming alcohol, all while caring for our children. Shockingly, she also confessed that she had left our 3-year-old and 4-year-old children with her parents while she went out. A 2-year-old and a 4-year-old 1 month prior, while the children were asleep, Amy informed me that my ex had intentions of filing for divorce after extracting more money from me while residing in my home without paying rent. Both Amy and I found this appalling and knew we had to put an end to it. My ex had a strong aversion to living under the same roof as me, as she genuinely despised me and wanted to continue her liaisons with a group of overly eager admirers. It was evident that a plan of action was required to evict her from the house and document her inappropriate behavior in order to limit her custody rights over our children. As a preliminary measure, I returned to the house and settled down on the bed right next to her. She reacted by insisting that I leave the house immediately and threatened to call the police if I refused. Unbeknownst to her, I was discreetly recording our conversation. I firmly stood my ground and she proceeded to call the police. My ex-partner accused me of domestic violence and called the police. The police arrived promptly and placed me in handcuffs. I later played the recording for the detective, which further incensed him. Eventually, our roles were reversed and my ex-partner was placed in handcuffs and taken to a squad car. She spent the night in jail. She stayed with Amy for the following week since she was not permitted to return to our house due to the restraining order I had obtained. During this week, she engaged in an extensive shopping spree, purchasing a new laptop, a brand new iPhone at its full retail price, and a fresh wardrobe. She proceeded to empty our joint bank account and begin tapping into my personal savings. Amy confirmed that she was excessively drinking at her place to the extent that she vomited and had an accident in her bathroom. Amy thought it prudent to capture her intoxicated state on video for future reference and provided me with a 20-minute recording of her displaying severe drunkenness. The following day, I recorded a video of her displaying severe drunkenness. In response, I withdrew all the funds from our savings account and transferred them to my new bank account to cover our expenses. I then closed that account to prevent any overdraft protection, thereby avoiding any financial burdens. In addition, I closed all our shared credit cards and shifted my investment accounts. Subsequently, she discovered these actions and, while she held no affection for her former partner, she was reluctant to see her cause her self-harm. She had even contemplated self-harm due to the dire situation she found herself in. However, Amy successfully persuaded her to seek assistance and they both checked her into an inpatient mental health facility. Hospitalization proved to be a beneficial intervention as it provided her with the necessary assistance. However, it also highlighted the potential danger she posed to herself and the children. The final phase of our plan was now ready to be initiated. I consulted with my attorney to begin divorce proceedings and complete the required documentation. My attorney was taken aback by my ex as my actions were fully supported by my attorney, who filed the divorce decree and secured a temporary restraining order from the judge, which was valid until the initial hearing. While my ex-wife was in the hospital, we served her the legal papers and scheduled the initial hearing for 2 weeks later. At the initial hearing, she appeared with her attorney, as it was a pretrial hearing. At the litigation hearing, the opposing counsel was unaware of the evidence that we possessed. The respondent took the stand and presented a convincing narrative, alleging that my actions constituted grounds for her hospitalization. She delivered a performance that could have been worthy of an Oscar, but it was my turn to present our case. My attorney introduced all the evidence, including videos and bank records. The pivotal moment came when my attorney called Amy to the stand as a witness. She recounted a distressing account of a neglectful mother spiraling out of control with worsening substance misuse issues. Throughout Amy's testimony, my ex was unable to maintain her composure and remained visibly distressed. Her attorney appeared foolish as her facades were now unraveling and contradicted her previous statements. Once the proceedings concluded, I was granted sole custody while she received supervised visitation until she completed rehab and additional treatment. We reached an out-of-court settlement establishing a progressive visitation schedule. Once she adhered to rehab and mental health counseling, I retained the house, paying her a portion of the equity and kept all my investment accounts. I also had the opportunity to spend 80% of the time with my kids. In contrast, she moved in with her mom for the next 2. Over the course of 5 years, she held a series of jobs, and 5 years later, her life appears to be quite good, particularly given that she is no longer a concern. This is my account of my relationship with my former partner. I am a 25-year-old man, and she is a 24-year-old woman. The relationship began auspiciously, with the couple enjoying a seemingly ideal first month together. Having been friends for some time, the woman suddenly confessed her romantic feelings for her partner. The man, who had initially concealed his emotions, seized the opportunity to express his feelings for her. However, a single argument arose during the second month when the woman invited her neighbor over during what was supposed to be their date. After a productive conversation, the couple resolved the issue and made up. The beginning of the problematic period was marked by a discrepancy in scheduling. The initial date, planned for Friday, was subsequently moved to Saturday to accommodate her work schedule. Details about the restaurant were kept secret, with the intention of making it a surprise rather than the usual home movie night. The request was made for her to keep the day free and dress nicely for the special occasion. However, an hour before the date, she texted to say she could not attend because she had plans to see a movie with a casual friend. This resulted in feelings of anger, as the payment for the reservation had already been made and the details had been communicated in advance. I had paid the reservation fee and informed her of the date more than a week in advance. I attempted to call her, but her phone was switched off. I then contacted her best friend, who was also unaware of the situation. The following morning, I spoke with her, and she initiated an argument, claiming that I should have informed her that it was a special restaurant date. After about an hour of arguing, she eventually acknowledged her mistake and apologized. We decided to take a day off to calm down and clear any lingering negativity from the situation. Subsequently, our relationship began to deteriorate while I remained the same. After 3 weeks of no intimacy, not even kisses, I confronted her to inquire about the situation. She stated that she needed a week to think and wanted to be single during that time. At that juncture, I articulated my willingness to take a temporary respite from the relationship if it would be beneficial, while also questioning the rationale behind her insistence on remaining single. She countered that her decision was driven by a desire for autonomy, and I came to understand that it was motivated by her involvement with another individual. As a result, we terminated our romantic involvement. However, she proceeded to disseminate misrepresentative narratives regarding the circumstances of our separation to various individuals, claiming that I had engaged in infidelity and exhibited abusive behavior. Fortunately, the friends to whom she had confided her false claims did not believe her, as we had all known each other for years and she had been introduced to them through me, her best friend. He had attempted to defend me, but she had blocked him. However, he had connections within her friend group, and through them, we were able to uncover the truth. It turned out that she had been cheating during in the final 3 weeks of our relationship. I discovered that the casual friend she had gone to the movies with was, in fact, a Tinder hookup. She had even attempted to initiate a relationship with him shortly after our breakup. Unsurprisingly, he was not interested and blocked her. Most shockingly, this individual had recorded their intimate encounters and uploaded them to adult websites, emphasizing that she was cheating during these encounters. I then proceeded to disseminate the incriminating evidence to adult websites, emphasizing that she was engaging in extramarital sexual intercourse during these encounters. As a result, the scandal rapidly proliferated, ultimately forcing her to withdraw from the university. At that juncture, I resolved to exact my own form of retribution, recognizing that it might not have been the optimal course of action. However, I had a close relationship with her parents, who remained largely unaware of the situation. I assumed that we had simply broken up. However, her parents were deeply religious, as was her grandmother. Despite the pain it caused, I managed to locate multiple videos. Yes, there were multiple videos, and I downloaded them. I also took screenshots of our breakup messages. Next, I initiated contact with her family, expressing my desire to share something important. I created a group chat. In the chat, I included her parents, grandmother, and former best friend. I shared all the screenshots and videos, accompanied by a text message detailing the entire sequence of events. Following this revelation, there was no communication for approximately 1 week. However, her ex-best friend eventually updated me on the unfolding situation. As a result of her actions, she had lost her scholarship due to her withdrawal from the university. Additionally, her grandmother, upon seeing the evidence, removed her from the will and disowned her. Consequently, her parents evicted her from their home and terminated financial support. Currently, she is employed in a minimum wage position and sharing a residence with friends to make ends meet.